We begin this week officially 6 months out from midterm election day. There is a lot at stake for Republicans and Democrats when it comes to the president and his agenda. The GOP advantage in both chambers on the Hill is razor thin, and the push is on to grow their margin of majority on the right. Control of the U.S. House could go almost either way, with a historically high number of retiring members on both sides of the political aisle. A fight over some open seats, some Democrats expressing optimism now over a chance as well to flip the Senate blue. The fight is on. Just sat down with 8 voters spanning the political spectrum. Voters' voices. In the front row, David, a Republican, Susan, a Democrat, Dominic, an independent, and Angela, a Republican. Let's meet the back row now. James, Democrat, David P., because we have a couple of Davids, Republican, Mary Josephine, an independent, and Dan, a Democrat. And here is a look at how all the voters overall are feeling 6 months before Election Day. On the generic congressional ballot, an average of recent national polling, Democrats lead by just under 6 points. But when it comes to how voters view the political parties, Republicans have the advantage. Voters see the GOP more favorably by a margin of about 3 points. A majority have a negative view of both political parties. I want to get a view of how you're going to vote. So in the past, how many of you have regularly voted in a midterm election? All right, not everybody. How about this time around? Everybody. Everybody voting? Just about, all but one. So I'm going to come to you. I want to know what holds you back this time from voting.
Well, honestly, what has been holding me back is I feel like the change that I was expecting from the president himself, I don't feel in my everyday life, which is concerning to me. I still feel, obviously, that, prices are very, very, very high. If you're going to the grocery store or just in general, because inflation still exists. Unfortunately, now we have the higher gas prices, which really hurt, everyday people in their pocket. And I've voted my entire life, and the frustration right now is, it's just unbelievable because what really changes? I just feel like that we're kind of, kind of steering the ship in the same direction.
That's interesting. So, Mary Josephine, you are, describe yourself, I should say, because it's not a party, but it's how you vote, independent. So you're independent from either political party, and you just don't feel strong about any of your choices right now. Susan, are you nodding at me? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now the political climate is very divided. I think that I'm a Democrat, but I think that a lot of the independents, they feel left out. Just a classic example, they can't vote in the primaries. So how are you gonna, encourage voter activity if they can't even vote in a primary and they have to wait till November, when in New York, the primary already decides who the candidate will be in office?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And my notes have you as a moderate Democrat. I'm just curious, what does that mean to you right now?
I feel, and I had this conversation with Dominic before we came on, I feel like a lot of independents have been disenfranchised. I feel strongly that I register as a Democrat. I was a Bill Clinton Democrat. Bill Clinton was the first president I voted for. And I feel like the Democratic Party has lost its ways, but I don't want to be an independent because then I can't vote in the primary. So I want to stay as a Democrat because I want to be able to vote.
So critical. This is like a fresh perspective this morning, because a lot of times independents don't really speak up about that. They just don't vote until they can. But Mary Josephine, you make a good point. You can't even get warmed up to vote because you're not included in that primary process by name. All right, a recent Gallup poll shows economic issues are dominating when it comes to the most important issues to voters right now. Top mentions: inflation, energy, housing, healthcare. The cost for all of them people are concerned about, and those account for nearly 1/3 of the answers in the open-ended surveys that we looked at. So that's interesting. If you just write your own, actually healthcare, according to Gallup, bubbles up to the top. David, in the front row, I know you are a Republican. What do you say about this?
Yeah, I think it comes down to priorities. People want to see the messaging, the laws, and everything that comes with it reflect the voters' concerns, whether it's housing, healthcare. They want a laser-like focus so they can feel like they're getting some relief or there's an attempt to get some relief. So I feel like the focus has been off.
Your laser-like focus in my notes: affordability, housing, education, in that order. Talk to me.
Yeah, well, affordability is number one, because if you don't have housing, you know, and you feel like the price of food and the price of gas is, you know, stopping you from having a better standard of living, it's going to be a problem. It's going to influence the way you vote and how you feel.
So, David in the back row, also a Republican. I'm curious because you're 21. I always you and I have been together before, election night many times. Yes. And I'm watching you grow into a man, so that is a wonderful blessing to see. But I want to ask you, as you continue to vote as a young man and you're looking at some of these issues, affordability has many in your age group on the political left really lurching towards socialism. But you're not doing that.
That's true. I'm not. I think it's easy to see where the frustration comes from and where the anger comes from. I think that in part is what powered Zohran Mamdani to his election, and we now have a socialist mayor of New York City, which I don't think a lot of people would have predicted a couple years ago. But I think you have to differentiate between identifying the problem, which is the affordability issue, with what are the rational solutions, how do we deal with it, what's the conservative approach, and the more liberal approach.
Yeah, interesting. James, I want to get your view on this idea of health care, though, because neither party really has stepped up and said, okay, well, this is what we will do.
Well, I would say that, you know, this administration has somewhat highlighted, you know, a lot of conversation around vaccinations, around, you know, taking dye out of food.
MAHA, Make America Healthy Again.
Right. So I would like to see the Democrats now actually kind of co-opt that conversation, right? I have three young kids. I have a 5-year-old son, a 5-year-old daughter, 2-year-old daughter, and a 5-month-old son, right? My wife breastfeeds, right? So those kind of things, that health conversation is real important for our household and my friends as well. So I just would like to see Democrats kind of be, okay, what are we going to do now to kind of say, well, you know, let's have the conversation what health looks like in neighborhoods or black communities like mine that I grew up in.
So that is so fascinating, because when we say healthcare, I think most people think just the cost of it. But you are into the nitty-gritty because the Trump administration has gotten into the nitty-gritty, and you want that from your political left as well.
Well, not left. Take it easy. I'm moderate.
Well, I didn't say far left, but you are left of center.
And I think that conversation becomes, as Democrats, they're kind of renaming being a Democrat now, and I'm not left, right? I'm right here in the middle of the sense of being a Democrat. So,
all right, I'm going to meet you right where you all are, because you seem to all light up on that.
Yeah.
Michigan's Democrat Senate primary is a glaring example of what we are seeing from the far left Democrat candidates now. It's a growing part of the party, and critics are calling out Mallory McMorrow, for an example, for deleted posts trashing rural Americans in her own state. Her Democrat rival, Abdul El-Sayed, has gotten a lot of attention for disgusting comments such as Israel is just as evil as Hamas, and offensive comments about Vice President Vance's wife and children. In Maine, moderate Democrat Janet Mills just dropped her Senate bid, paving the way for far-left Graham Plattner. And he's facing criticism for past controversial posts and now covered tattoo that resembles a Nazi symbol. I mean, well, when you see it, you wouldn't confuse it with anything else. If you still think the Democratic Party is not lurching toward socialism, we're going to scroll a list of far-left candidates. Just this season, the list is growing. All right. Mary Josephine, I heard from you earlier first, but I'm going to come to you and then get to Dan.
I really think that it's become so divisive that people, they are lurching far left and lurching far right because they really want that change that I'm talking about. And I think it's because the answers haven't been found, even though they're in the middle. I really think that people want clean water. They want clean air. They want healthy food for their children and for their families. They want a safe environment in their cities. They want to be able to, go to school and learn and not, come out being confused as to what is right and what is wrong. I think it's that simple.
Dan?
I think in the last year, what we've seen is left side of our party start to push for more government role in these exact issues, and issues like housing and affordability, our environment, our city streets. Living here in New York, I can tell you, I'm not exactly thrilled with all of the construction that's blocking the streets, but I'm happy that the potholes are being filled. This is a vision that kind of proposes itself as a way to fix the issues of society.
The socialist mayor's vision you're talking about.
Yeah, in a way that the private market has not for the last 10 to 15 years, and I think it's good to have competition in the idea marketplace.
Are you comfortable with how far left your party's going?
I am comfortable with how far left we're willing to go to help working class people. I'm not comfortable with a lot of what you've just described, where we're attacking people's spouses and children and religious views and these sorts of things. I don't think there's any room for that in politics. We should stay focused on policy. We should stay focused on fixing things, and we should stay focused on a role for government in making people's lives better.
Dominic?
This whole conversation is such a breath of fresh air because, as you know, I'm an independent, and my biggest problem with politics in America in general is I feel both sides are taking more extreme views each election, and we have several people on this panel, Democrats including, specifically telling you, no, I'm a moderate, right? And I feel like things are becoming more centered, where it's not as extreme anymore. Yeah, there's no question. Listen, Trump has some wins and losses so far. I think for me, two of the wins might be immigration and maybe homeland security. But a big loss for him is the economy and inflation and the cost of living, which has been a common theme here across Republicans and Democrats. The cost of living is just too expensive. It's just too expensive to live, and everyone here is feeling it. And I think that's where, in the midterms, I think the independents are going to control this election. And I think that, yes, Trump might lose some Republican voters, but I think some of the Democrats are still too liberal, and then that's going to determine where we're going to go.
So that's fascinating. So if you go too far to the left, socialism, even tipping into communism as they open up free grocery stores, that costs $30 million apiece. Well, you're still paying for it.
Yeah.
It's an expensive place to live on either coast, but it's expensive no matter where you are because you've got the American dream and you want that to come true. So I get that. Powerful conversation. It is great to have all of you. I hope you all come back for Voters' Voices. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.